There's a couple people that I owe a beer to, and 3 or 4 I owe more than a few. For all the times I couldn't find the answer, stumbling through the dark without a clue. This one's for you. Mom and Daddy always did their best for a crazy fool who couldn't help himself. I thank God that they were there to see me through. So this one's for you. I told you all I'd write you a song, pour my heart in a melody to keep you singing along. This might not be the right time, these might not be the right lines to prove or say what I'm trying to, but this one's for you. I've been knocked down time and time again, got picked back up by luck and a few good friends who reminded me of all I stood to lose. So this one's for you. I told you all I'd write you a song, pour my heart in a melody to keep you singing along. This might not be the right time, these might not be the right lines to prove or say what I'm trying to, but this one's for you. Made more than my fair share of the same mistakes, bridges burned and lessons learned, a few things that I can't change. Some apologies are way past overdue, so this one's for you. Yeah, I told you all I'd write you a song, pour my heart in a melody to keep you singing along. This might not be the right time, these might not be the right lines to prove or say what I'm trying to, but this one's for you. There's a couple people that I owe a beer to, 3 or 4 I owe more than a few.
All right, we're recording now. Let's get back into the story that we were just talking about. And I was like, wait a minute. Let's record this first. So just stop where you are and let me hit record.
This is going to be a hell of a story for the first podcast, but
that's great. Okay. It's actually right around the time that you and I started hanging out. It was, I think I started hanging out with you maybe the next day, maybe.
Yeah.
Or, it was really close. So it's kind of, I just remember being with
Yeah.
D. And you gave him a call and you're like, hey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me set this up real quick.
Okay.
All right. So I'd gotten divorced for the first time, and gotten married again really quickly to a girl that I didn't know all that well. And we started having some problems pretty early. And so I was going through a kind of a rough patch, and I got the idea. She was cleaning houses for a living, and I was working in the oil field as usual. So I get the idea in my head that I think that she's cheating on me. She's messing around with this dude that she's cleaning the house over by the golf course. in McAllister, really nice neighborhood. I mean, big homes and all this stuff like that. So I get to thinking, because I'm insecure, that maybe, you know, she's doing some things she shouldn't do. So I can't go by there. You know what I'm saying? I can't. And I'm pretty sure she's there, and this dude is probably there too. And all I've got in my mind are these images of my wife and this guy, you know, doing what comes natural. So it's driving me crazy. You know, I'm all messed up over being divorced anyway. And then, you know, we're married again. It's not working out. And I get tired. You know, it feels like I'm losing it, everything. So I'm sick of it. So I called Dustin Bridges on the phone, and I'm like,
and I was in the truck with him at the time.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about that, you know. Dustin usually likes to have a rider. He likes to have somebody riding with him or whatever, whenever he's doing whatever he's doing. And so I call him, and I'm like freaking out, you know. I think she's messing around, blah, blah, blah. I was like, will you do me a favor? Will you go by there and just see if she's there by herself, or if there's, you know, is there another vehicle there? It's you know, I gotta know. I've got to know. This is driving me crazy. I'm going nuts.
And I was completely shocked when you said all that, because you know, the Lucas Johnson that I knew about, you know, I mean, when you said all that, I was like, I looked right at Dustin like, is this for real?
What is he saying? Yeah,
this is not the Lucas Johnson I have heard stories about, and the infamous Lucas Johnson.
I was going through a lot of, you know, mentally, I was not all there, obviously. You know, it's not a proud moment of mine. You know, I don't look back on it in fondness or anything.
Like, I wanted to get out of the truck right then and just walk home.
Well, I remember him even saying, he's like, well, I got Ben Klein with me, and we'll just run by there. Mm-hmm. He's kind of talking like he doesn't want to, or I think he said something along those lines or something, but he's like, we're going to go ahead and go by there anyway. And, you know, Dustin being the dude he was, he's humoring me, you know, he knows that I'm, and you know, and if I'm being honest, and I knew the man as well as anybody that's on this earth, anybody that ever knew him, I know him as well. And he was kind of on the back, you know, in the back of his mind, he's hoping something's going down. Because he liked for a little bit of craziness every now and then, you know. I think that's why he had some of the friends that he had, you know, because he liked life a little out of order.
Right.
So,
right.
Anyways, you guys, you go by there, and
it was like watching a movie. You know, he just was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll watch this movie.
So, anyway, let's go on with the story. So,
okay.
You guys go by there. Of course, I don't have any knowledge of what you guys saw or anything like that. Just what, you know, Dustin's like, no, man.
For the record, we saw nothing.
I don't think she was even there. Was she, or was she? I can't remember. I don't think she was even there. I think he was telling me there's not even anybody there.
I think so.
And I had, in days before, because she was cleaning this house like, I want to say a couple times a week. And that's what got me. I was like, why clean the house more than a couple times a week? And then I went in this house.
And realized. And
kind of, well, I surprised her one day, you know what I mean? Because I'm being psycho. So I go in the house, you know, I like show up, hey, you would come by and see if I can help you. You know,
brought you a Sonic drink.
Can I help you? You know what I mean? Let me clean a toilet or whatever. And I'm looking around this house, and it's immaculate. I mean, like, there's no way this house needs to be cleaned twice a week. Don't even bother telling me that, because I'm looking around and it's spotless. You know, I mean, you'd have to look for something. And then that's what really got me thinking something was going on. You know, I'm sitting there going, no way this woman should be here 2 times a week. This is ridiculous. Anyways, so long story, even longer. I start drinking after I get off work. Was it that? It might not have been that day. It might have been a couple of days later. Anyway, my wife at the time and I were not getting along. So I take off drinking one day, and I'm off work. So I drink all day, like starting at like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, drinking and driving around out in the woods like a psycho, dude. And I am sitting around, running around in my own head while I'm driving. And I probably got some sad, stupid music on. And, you know, I've got it in my mind, she's cheating on me, you know. I want to back up. I want to back up just a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. Now,
I'll allow it.
A couple of days before that, was that before? No. It was after you guys went by there. I get psycho jealous and I get her phone. Okay. And I look at her phone, looking through text messages, and I see this dude. He's an attorney. Okay. I'm not going to mention any names, but he's an attorney. And there's messages back and forth, and it's joking mostly, stuff that, not really a guy and a girl should say back and forth, but, it's kind of like whatever. Because she's a waitress, and she's waiting tables, and then she's working at a bar. And the story's starting to sound like, I was dating the stripper, but she didn't do anything, she was, whatever. Anyway, so I'm looking at these messages, and then I look at one and it says, are you working tomorrow? And she says, yes. And then this guy says, I want you to wear your glasses to work because it makes my dick hard.
Oh, God.
Okay. This is what this guy says. So I don't say anything to her. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay. So now I've got a face to put with my craziness. So that's when I go out drinking all day long. I know she's going to work at this bar and all this stuff like that. So I drink all day long. I'm calling Dustin and I'm like, let's go to the bar where she works. I'm ready. I want to just surprise her, show up and see what happens. So Dustin picks me up that evening, and I'm not drunk or anything, but I've been drinking slowly all day. But I mean, I'm been drinking. So it's him and his wife, and I don't remember if they were married at the time or not. But anyway, probably not. I don't guess so. Not. Anyway, so they pick me up. We drive up to this bar, and it's up by Eufaula. We get up there, and I'm in the mood for trouble. Whenever I get, I know there is going to be trouble tonight. I have got it in my head that nobody can do right. No matter what they do, it's not going to be right. So I walk in this place, and as I'm walking up, and this is, dude, I wish I was making this stuff up, but I will tell you verbatim what I can remember of it happening. Walk up, and we don't even make it in the door. There's like a deck on the outside of this place. It's right on the water. And there's a black dude standing there and a white guy standing there. And you can tell that they're kind of like bowed up at each other. And the white guy's like yelling and screaming in this dude's face. And of course, I came looking for trouble. Okay. And so it looks like that this dude's picking on this other dude. So I step in between. I don't know either one of them. Don't know them. Never seen them before. If I saw them today, I wouldn't recognize them. I step up in front of this guy and I go, hey man, what's your problem? And this guy's like, they ain't got nothing to do with you. And I was like, I think it does. Well, the other guy, I don't know where he goes. He just like vanishes, probably looking for a way out of it or whatever. And I'm looking for trouble. So it just worked out great. And, so this guy's like, man, this ain't got nothing to do with you. And I was like, I think it does now, and I'm trying to pick a fight with this guy. And he's big like me. I mean, probably not as fat as me, but I mean, he's a big old guy. And, but I'm, how when you get in these moods where you're just not going to be, you're the hammer. So when you're the hammer, everything looks like a nail. I'm sure everybody's heard that saying. Well, that's what I was. I was a hammer that night. So everything's a nail, So I'm like, blah, blah, talk trash this dude. He doesn't really want to fight somebody that wants to fight, I mean, I've seen that 100 times. So, and Dustin's like, dude, and this guy, like, we kind of part ways or whatever. And Dustin's like, listen, man, we ain't even inside yet. Don't do this. You're going to ruin this night. And I was like, dude, I come up here looking for trouble. And he's like, oh, that face that he, mm-hmm. Luke is what he'd always say to me. Luke, come on. And of course, his wife, she's just like, or his girlfriend at the time, she's just like this. This night's going to suck. We go inside, and we're not speaking, my wife and I. We're not talking at this time, I mean, we're having a lot of problems. And so I go in, and I sit down, And I remember there's a guy with a captain's hat there, and he's been with a group of people, and they're being loud, and he's getting on my nerves, but I'm not after him, So I'm sitting there for a little bit, and I look up across the way, and I see the lawyer that had the text message. Okay, and my wife comes out. she's got drinks, you know, she's doing barmaid stuff. And she takes stuff over there, and she walks by him, and they say something to each other, and she smiles or whatever and walks on. Well, it's immediate rage. I'm talking about, like, I came here looking for someone to provoke me this way. In my mind, it's provocation. So I get up and I go over to this guy. Dude, he was a nail. He was the nail for me that night. And I walk up to him and I go, hey, man, how you doing? He don't know anything. He doesn't know I know anything. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, he doesn't know me at all. Oh, nothing. You know, how you doing? I was like, hey, I know you've been texting my wife. And I basically said back to him exactly what the text message said. And I said, I know you don't have a wife, but if you did, would you want me to text her and say that to her? And I just, you know, how you throw that out there to somebody and you just lock eyes with them. You know, like, what are you going to say back? You know, I'm acting all mean and everything. And you can tell, dude, you know that look on someone's face where if he could possibly die at that moment, he would be okay with it. You know what I mean? For all of his success and all the things that he's got and all these things, there's none of that can help him. You know what I mean? There is nothing between me and him but air and opportunity. So he's standing there, and a guy that he knows that, you know, I would say a lot of us in our circle especially knows this guy. And I've dealt with him some and didn't dislike him, I don't guess. Didn't know him all that well. But he comes up to me, and he's trying to break the tension between the lawyer and I. He's like, hey, man. He puts his arm around me. And like I said, this night I'm a hammer. Everything's a nail. And I turn around. He's like, hey, man, just calm down. We're all having a good time. And I rear back with both hands. And I hit this man on his pectoral muscles with both palms of my hands. And I shove him as hard as I can. I'm talking about, and he does not know it's coming. He's looking at me smiling. You know what I'm saying? When I hit him, his feet came off the ground. Like his feet, I think his shoulder blades hit first on the floor.
Jeez.
Boom. Well, I didn't even, after I saw him go down, I stopped looking at him. Because my attention is on the lawyer. Boom. I turned around back to this guy and I was like, look. Well, I didn't know Dustin was anywhere around, okay? I thought he was still sitting at the table. Now, you know, knowing him as well as I do now, and if I have a clear head, I know as soon as I got up, he got up with me. He's probably been standing behind me this whole time, letting me do what I'm doing.
He's watching you the whole time.
Right.
He never took his eyes off of you.
Right. And
he knew what was going on.
I see this guy. Well, I see this guy get up, you know. Well, I don't care about him right now. You know what I mean? I mean, I am very, very hyper-focused on this lawyer. And he goes, I'm really sorry. And I said, don't say a word. Don't speak to me. Listen to what I say. Well, as this guy gets up, I see Dustin walk over there, and everybody's seen this dude do this. Dustin, you've seen him do it 100 times. He just slides his arm around this dude's neck. And he goes, hey, man, he don't mean anything. I hear him out of the corner of my, because I'm kind of looking to see if this guy's going to get dumb. Because I'm going to handle him if I have to.
Now, had you told Dustin?
Yeah, oh yeah, he knew all about it. Yeah. He's, I told the dude probably more than I should. You know what I mean? I didn't hold any cards to my chest with this dude. I told him everything. Well, and he was really good at evaluating situations where I wasn't. You know, just like this situation, I'm out in control. I'm like a fire hose that's been let go. You know what I mean? There's no rhyme or reason. I'm just going crazy. And he had a really good ability, because I think he liked to watch all this crap happen, to go to me and go, look, man, it's this, don't, look at it like this or whatever. And a lot of times he would talk me down on this stuff, but he knew what was said. He knew the lines that were crossed, and he knew that there was no coming back for me. That there ain't no talking me. There's certain times in my life where I'm that guy where there ain't no talking me out of it. It can make all the sense in the world, and I'm not going to hear you. Anyway, so as he's telling this guy, hey, he doesn't mean anything by it, and I just look at this guy and I'm back on the lawyer. And I said, what you need to do is you need to pay your check and you need to leave here. And if I find out that you even look at my wife ever again, not to mention not talk to her, you don't talk to her ever again. Don't text her, nothing. Because if you have any more contact with her at all, if I ever find you guys in the same place again, I'm going to forget you're a lawyer, and I'm going to hurt you in ways you can't imagine. I said, so you need to pay your check. You need to get out of here. So I feel like I've said my piece. You know what I'm saying? Now, even in my state, I'm sitting there thinking, dude, you know, if you ever get started in on this guy, he knows the law. You know what I mean? He will use it. He will jackhammer me with the law, so to speak. You know, I'm ready for the bad stuff. And
well, it won't cost you or him any money, but it's going to cost you a whole bunch of money.
It'll cost me a lot of things, not just money. So anyway, I turned my attention away from this guy because I'm not scared of him. He's a fairly frail older gentleman, you know, and go back to the guy that I pushed down. And, you know, Dustin, at this time, when I turn around, then Dustin moves between us. Because Dustin also knows where everything's a nail. So while this nail's done, I'm ready for this nail. Turn around, and he gets between us. He's got his back to me and his front to this guy. He's like, man, come on. And he puts his arms around this guy, hugs him, and takes him towards like what would be the kitchen or the back of the bar area. And he takes him away from me. Okay, I'm kind of getting distracted here. That happens. This dude's done. He didn't really want, he was mad about me pushing him down, I'm sure. I don't blame him. But this guy's not a fighter necessarily or anything like that. So, and I'm not either. I'm not claiming to be a fighter. It was just, I was out of it. You know, I'd lost connection with reality. I have young children, by the way, at this time.
Right.
So, like an idiot. Anyways, so I go back to where we're sitting like nothing happened. I'm not happy. You know, I'm not like that guy I'm not crazy guy where I can go, I'm mad, now I'm laughing. You know, there's no bipolar thing going on. I was just mad all night. Sat back down for a few minutes, and then Dustin's like, look, you got everybody in this place mad or worried you're going to do something. My wife comes up to me and she goes, you need to get out of here. You're going to get me fired. And I said, oh, you're talking to me now? You know, that whole game. And she's like, get out here, leave. You know, you're going to get me fired. This is not fair to me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right. So we get up to leave, walk out the door. Well, who's standing outside the door but this big dude that I tried to pick a fight with at the beginning of the night? Still out there. And I said, what are you still doing here? And he says, I'll never forget it, dude. He goes, you're just out here trying to scare people, aren't you? And I said, I hope you're not scared. You know, I mean, I'm just trying to push this dude. I was like, I hope you're not scared of me. And he goes, well, I don't know why you're out here trying to push people around. And so I just hit this dude. I mean, and we just boom, 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 boom. We go, there's boat docks there. Well, they have like a door that's made out of expanded metal that shuts and locks so that not just anybody can go get in boats. You know what I'm saying? We go up against this thing, and I'm hitting him on the way down. And as I'm swinging, I clip that expanded metal with my hand. Bam, you know, well, at the time I didn't feel it, you know, we're boom, 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 fighting around. Well, then the next thing I know, Dustin jerks me up off this guy. I'm talking about like yanks me up on my feet, and I turn around to see who it is, you know, what's going on. He goes, there's a fucking cop walking up here right now. This is exactly what he said to me right in my face. And I go, what? Turn and look. Sure. I mean, the dude is walking up. So I go and there's a bench outside the door of this bar. We're right out front of the bar. I go and sit on the bench with my bleeding hand and sit down like I'm not doing anything and put a smile on my face like we're just standing there talking. This guy's still down over here. I'm just sitting here. And Dustin's like, he's looking at me like, don't screw this up, you know? So the cop comes walking up there. And he goes, what's going on here? I don't say anything. I act like I have nothing to do with anything. I'm just like looking down like I'm bored. And and my hand, and Dustin's like this. Dustin goes, hey, your fucking hand's bleeding. I was like, oh. So I cover it up with the other hand. Just sitting there. And this dude gets up, you know, and he's not really bleeding or anything. We really just kind of got started. You know what I'm saying? I just had punched around him a few times. And so the guy's like, well, this dude's he's starting fights with everybody, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there, and the cop looks at me, and I give him my most innocent, I don't know, have any idea what he's talking about, officer, face. You know what I mean? I'm like, what? You know, and so they split us up. The cop says, you stand over here talking to me. You know, you stand over here. So Dustin, of course, and his girlfriend at the time, we go over there. Well, he goes and talks to this dude. The owner of this bar is outside at this point for some reason. He comes over to me and he goes, okay, you got a problem. The guy you were fighting is an informant for that cop. And I said, what? He said, he knows him. He tells people what's going on, tells that cop what's going on with everything around this area. I didn't know any of these guys. I mean, I'm not even from Eufaula, you know? So the cop comes over and he goes, so you run around out here starting fights? I was like, officer, no. You know, that guy was picking on somebody whenever I got here. We had a little bit of a thing. And then whenever I come out to leave, he's still here. I said, I'm not looking for trouble. And all this, the whole night, I had been causing trouble inside this bar. I was like, I'm trying to go home. I am ready to go home. I'm not drunk, you know. And I was a little bit drunk, but not bad, you know. I mean, I was, Dustin wouldn't let me drink a whole lot in that bar. And it sounds like Dustin had a lot of control over me because he did.
Right.
I mean, basically he'd be like, dude, you know,
he was the reason.
He could always talk sense into people
yes.
that were senseless, dude. I've seen him do it with too many people. Other people that we know also. So anyway, at that point, you know, we just load up in the truck and Dustin gives me a speech for like an hour after we leave, you know, of, you know, you are losing it. You know, if you can't trust this girl, you need to go on, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, of course we split up later. And
how long after that though did you guys?
Not long after that, because we were only together. We were married, I think like 8 months, but we lived together like 3 or 4 of that. Mm. I mean, we were split up and not living together for a few months, and then she finally filed. I just had left her alone because she, you know, and then she filed, and that was it.
Yeah, because see, this is the, excuse me, this is the Lucas Johnson I've never met, or I've never around.
Oh, the psycho guy or whatever?
I never saw you like that. I've never seen you like that ever.
That's probably the only time I've ever been that way. You got to understand, man.
I've never seen you be combative or try to fight or anything like that.
No, I'm not generally that way. I mean,
this right here is exactly what I've known. I've heard stories, but this is the only version.
Well, this is pretty much, I mean, this is my favorite me. You know what I mean? This is the one I like the most out of all the me's that there are, I guess, or whatever. But anyway, that was a wild little bit of time there, you know. I mean,
I think right after that is when we started hanging out.
Yeah. That definitely. I mean, after that was when we started playing basketball together and all that stuff like that. And then it was, you know, then Dustin ended up getting like, he was like a little bit, I guess, jealous, you know, because you and I started hanging out without him, because he was going off working and stuff, and then we go hang out, and he's like, so I guess you and Ben are like boyfriend and girlfriend or something now.
It's like, well, you're not around us, you moved off.
That's what I was like, dude, you know, we're just hanging out. There's nothing to do if you're gone, you know. So, but yeah, we used to have some good times, man. You know, if Dustin was alive still, dude, there's so many things I've forgotten about. Right. You know, that he never forgot. Right. He could tell every detail. Yes. If he was here, he would probably, you know, of course, because he's kind of outside of it, you know, he just making sure somebody doesn't kill me. He probably remembers more of the conversation than I do. I mean, that was just. Yeah, and if you were telling the story, he'd be like, what? No, that's not how it went down. This is how it went down. Yeah, and then he'd bring up he always had proof too. You know, he'd be like, no, because if you'll remember this, and this, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay. He'll like scroll through his text messages that you sent him back in, 2011, and he's like, see, right here. Yeah. You're like. On his flip phone. Yeah. Well, the first phone, I think he had that Nokia. Wasn't it Nokia? Yeah. It's a Nokia. I remember it had like a real bright screen. This is about, I don't know, 2001. Anyways. See, like 2000, like about 2006, 2007, we would we got to where we were meeting. I was working for Chesapeake, and I was working in McAllister, around McAllister area most of the time, but I was living in Wilburton, and he lived with me for a little bit after I first got divorced. And it was, it wasn't debauchery. I mean, I don't want to give the impression we were like running around drinking and, all craziness, but we would go, I just want to say this about the phones, because we were talking about the phones. We would be sitting there. We would always eat at Western Sizzlin for lunch every day. And we would be there about like 10:30 in the morning. And we would show up, and we'd show up and sit around and talk. And this man would have his flip phone. I am not kidding. I wish I was making this up. We would be carrying on a conversation just like you and I are right here, back and forth, back and forth. And he would be going, and never look at his phone, send, close, set it down. Never look at it. And I'm like, don't you want to check that? And he's like, I don't need to. And I would go by, I'm like, show me those text messages. Not a missed letter.
Really?
And he would never look at it. If he was looking at it, it was out of the corner of his eye or something. He's using peripheral, and he had some sharp-ass peripheral vision, I guess. Because a man, 100 miles an hour with his thumb, not with both hands. This is back in, if you wanted C, you had to push number 1 3 times.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's these, and he's like, and then shut it, set it down. And just sit there and keep on talking.
Well, I remember, this is kind of irrelevant, but when we would play video games, he would lay down on the futon and put both hands over his head and just sit there and play like it was I'd look at him, I was like, how are you playing with your hands over your head? For me, I have to be centered,
right?
And I never understood it. And he'd be right there playing right there with me. I'm like, dude, I think maybe if you would sit up and get straight with the TV and stuff, maybe it would be easier. And he's like, oh, dude, okay.
Yeah,
every time he got comfortable.
Oh yeah.
More, he was going to get comfortable no matter what.
Definitely. Well, that's what he was always inviting me over to watch Dallas game. We watch football all the time, and he would invite me over, and he was always cooking. Always pork loin, and usually macaroni and cheese, that kind of thing. And then he'd sit there on the couch in his little red gym shorts, and
with was it black stripe or white stripe?
That was a black stripe.
Black stripe, right.
Yeah. And he would sit there, and we would watch football. Now, we could sit here and have a great conversation until the game started. And then I was having a one-way conversation. I would talk to him, and he would not answer me.
Talking to yourself?
Now, during commercials, he would talk to me. But during the game, dude was into it. Like he was about to go in. You know what I mean? Like he's sitting there waiting to go into the game.
Right.
His mind is on the game. And, it was... Dustin had a lot of talents that I don't think they're small things that people, if you didn't spend a lot of time around him, you might miss, that were just unbelievable. Sure. He's one of those people, and people in your life like this that they got little things about them. They're good at a lot of stuff. Legitimately, the dude was good at a lot of things. And it was funny because, people tend to look at somebody, like Dustin's size. He was a giant man. He's bigger than me, so that's big. And you look at it, and people think of guys, and they think of slow. That's me. Slow, dumb, all these things. And Dustin was not, he wasn't a real fast runner, but mentally, nothing slow about this dude.
Right.
And everything was chess, not checker. This dude's always trying to get a jump ahead or whatever. And there was a lot of things about him that I enjoyed. A lot of little things that, like I said, unless you spent day in, day out, it was hard to know about him. And I noticed as he got older, whenever I first got divorced the first time, and he started living with me, he was still young, and it was like he would do those annoying things that young single guys do, like my house stunk like oil-based mud all the time. I came home one time, dude, and his stuff was like piled everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't a whole lot of furniture in the house, right? because we were bachelors, and we don't need a whole lot, whenever you're a bachelor. And I was like, dude, your stuff is all piled right in front of the door. We got to do something different. Well, then I said, I've got a realtor coming. I was trying to sell my house. I was like, I got a realtor coming, in like 2 hours. This has got to be cleaned up. I was pissed, but not like, I wasn't mad at fight him or anything, but I was irritated. You know what I mean? So I was like, she's going to be here a couple hours. I had to go do something. I left and come back, and it's all clean. Everything's up. Everything's gone. So I'm like, all right. And I said, man, I appreciate it. He's like, that's no problem. He's like, I'm going to go ahead. And I think he might have went to Lacey's house or something like that while the realtor was there. And, he headed out. I met the realtor. She goes on, about her way. And I was sitting there thinking, after she left, I was like, man, what did he do with all that shit? There was a lot of stuff in here, Well, I had a coat closet right by the door. I opened that thing, and all his shit is like he must have shut the door with, and it was like on the movies where all those balls of shit fall out. It was like that. All of his clothes and everything fell out, boots and all this stuff. I was like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. Anyway, that's not a special thing about him that he was able to do. It was just funny, because he had all that stuff piled around.
No, it's not very. It's not very.
Well, it's one of those things where it's fitting, because you and I met through him,
right.
And I met a lot of people through him. There's a lot of people that I know, most people that I know, I met through him.
No, I saw you. We've talked about this a million times over the years, but before we started hanging out, I saw you every time I went to eat somewhere. Mm-hmm. If I went to McAllister and ate at
anywhere,
Western
no matter
Barbecue,
what. Yeah,
somewhere where no one knew anything about it, was a place that nobody ate at. You would walk in the door, and I'm thinking, and I'd always make a remark to you, I'm like, dude, are you following me or something?
Well, that was how often it was too, is because it was we didn't know each other, but all of a sudden it was weird
all the time. Everywhere I went, anytime I went to eat lunch or dinner, it just seemed like here you come, walking through the door. And you always just smiled and laughed, ha, ha, ha. And I thought, man, this dude probably thinks I'm following him,
You were always there when I got there, though, but that's what.
Yeah.
And now that we're friends, I'd never see you anywhere unless we have to make time or whatever.
Yeah, you never invite me.
Oh, my God, dude.
You go to the movies without me. You go eat out all the time without me. I go, hey, did you know about this new Mexican restaurant, El Jalisco?
Yeah, of course I do.
I've ate there a few times, dude. I eat there all the time. I'm like,
well, you don't ever go out and eat. You know what I'm saying? You like eat at home or whatever. I don't know. You're what's the expression? You're tight as bark on a tree. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to spend any money, so I don't see you.
Well, I got to spend money on food somewhere. If I'm not going to spend it at a restaurant, I'm going to spend it at Walmart, where it's, you get a little bit of food for a whole lot of money, and then you're like, where is $189 at?
Oh yeah, I remember being a kid, man, and my mom and dad taking us to the grocery store, and my dad would be like, "It's $100 to get out of there," and we'd have like these bags. And that was back when they had paper bags, and they had a Safeway when I was a kid and lived in Seminole. We'd have it seemed like 15 paper bags full of crap. It was like $100. My dad's like, breaking us, blah, blah, $100. Now you can go to Walmart and buy $100 worth of stuff and then put it in one bag.
Right. And carry it out with one hand, one finger.
Yeah.
Over your shoulder and just
I think about it whenever, a lot of times whenever something costs, when I buy $100 worth of stuff, I'm like, dude, I can remember, and this is telling my age, but I'm acting like I'm back in the Depression, well, you could buy, a ton of rice for $100 back whenever I was a kid. But anyway, yeah, I remember it being, things being a lot cheaper, but no, man, what I was going to say was, and I wanted to bring some attention since we're doing the first podcast, that this is Dustin's hat that he bought when we were running around. He just decided one day, he called me cowboy for a long time, because I was raised around on a ranch and that kind of thing like that. My grandparents had a ranch, and I spent my summers there and a lot of weekends and stuff like that. So as I got older and, my dad never had any animals or anything like that. But when I got older, I got interested in it. So, I tried to rope a little bit and those kind of things like that. And I was terrible at it. And it was like trying to get into it cost $1 jillion. So I stopped doing it. But anyway, during that time, he started calling me cowboy all the time. He's like, you ain't no cowboy, blah, blah. So then he starts dressing cowboy stuff. And I remember the day we bought this hat, he was wanting to buy a hat. I want to buy a hat, go with me, help me pick one out. And we go in there and he's trying them on and he had this, try this hat on, Luke. He put it on his head. And I was like, actually, that one doesn't look too bad. And as soon as the lady that was working was like, that one looks pretty good on you, he was like,
that's it.
I'm getting it. He's like, sexual chocolate, man. Sexual chocolate. Look how good I look, And we laughed. Me and that lady laughed. He laughed. We went on. But and I never thought he would wear it. I mean, I never dreamed. Next thing I know, he's wearing it all the time. I mean, maybe not every day, but a lot. And he didn't wear hats a whole lot. I mean, a lot of times he would take a hat somewhere. I know he had like 3 hats that sat on his dash all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but he never wore them. But that thing, whenever he got it, he would wear it. And it was strange. People would ask me that knew him when he was young. And they're just like, "What's up with Dustin wearing the cowboy hat and everything?" And I'm like, "I don't know. He wants to wear it. I mean, what do you want me to say? Fashion statement or whatever. I don't know." And he got the whole garb. I mean, he ended up, he had boots and, he kind of, as he got older, that I guess that type of person kind of appealed to him. I mean, he quit drinking and a lot of things as he got older. And, I remember he got like super responsible. At one time, that was
he wouldn't even play sports with us hardly. I mean, especially when it came to like playing even flag football. Of course, he's like, "What am I going to do out there on flag football? I'm not going to catch nobody." But he still would play. I mean, he did play with us for a while. But when he got, I think when he started working for Taco, years ago, and we were still playing, he's like, "Dude, I can't play anymore, man, because if I get hurt, I was like, "Get hurt?" He's like, "Man, if I get hurt, it's gonna, mess my job up."
Well, definitely. Whenever he got together with his wife,
I was like, "Who is this guy?"
Well, I mean, he got serious about it. Was a big thing about.
Okay.
He wanted to make sure though that he kept his livelihood up. You know what I mean? I mean, when we were young and before he got married and stuff, I mean, he was, we were just running around being dumb, you know what I mean? But after that, he got really serious. If he did go out, even to bars or anything like that, he didn't drink. He just sat there. He was quiet. I used to try to get him to dance, and everybody knows the man could dance. And
yes,
he wouldn't even two-step with anybody. He wouldn't do nothing. He would just sit there.
At our birthday party we had in the city, he didn't really dance.
Dude, and
Very
everybody,
little.
even you, were going
way
ham.
overboard.
You were going
way overboard. I still have the video because he took video of me on his phone and he sent it to me. It's not that great a quality, but you can still see what I was doing.
Yeah,
and
it was crazy, dude.
It was very
funny.
crazy. And I remember him sitting back and all them guys were like, "Man, he's hammered." Some people that we didn't even know, and that's just like, he don't even drink.
Yeah.
He don't even drink.
Yeah.
And they were like,
dude, I was there with you, and I was surprised. I was like, I can't believe this dude is not drunk. And
dude,
he's
I
acting
danced
like
for
this.
like 3.5, 4 hours straight.
Yeah,
Straight.
I know.
I didn't come off the dance floor.
I know.
Straight. There's a lot of people that were there that didn't really, that hadn't really hung out with me all that much, and they were just like,
Oh,
wow.
I had
And
never
you had-
seen you dance or anything
Right.
like that either. I mean, I knew your sense of humor at that time, but
Right.
I didn't know.
It wasn't
You go
linked.
Saturday Night Fever on me. I didn't know you were going to do that. But
And then we've said we were going to do that every year. We're going to,
Yeah.
because we were the birthday brothers. Your birthday's in May, Dustin's is in May, and mine's in May.
yeah,
And we never went out again.
no, that was fun though. It was a
It was
neat
very
deal.
fun.
Yeah, it was
We went
fun.
and ate at Toby Keith's.
Yep.
Yeah, ate there first, and we had a
That's
good
where I
time.
saw there was a drunk girl that like passed out walking out of the bathroom at Toby Keith's, and they thought she was dying for a minute. It was weird. The chick that was with her was freaking out even.
Oh, I think I remember that now.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. But that's the way anything that we ever did always turned out like that. It was never just normal, never average. It was always
Never.
It was always some circumstance that came up made it seem
You can never have
odd.
just a normal night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for people that live in McAllister, people that are from McAllister, and you tell them some of your stories, or I tell them some of my stories, they look at me like I'm lying, A, and B, I'm crazy. Like, you're bad luck. You're bad luck, and you're crazy, and you're a liar.
Well, you know,
Like,
it was
I'm telling you.
there was always you know, there was plenty of people around that probably went out, hung out, talked, drank a little bit, or got really drunk and then went home, passed out,
Right.
got up the next day, went on about their lives. We were never able to do that.
No.
It was always, and it wasn't me. I wasn't not even always the crazy one. You know what I'm saying? It was any number of people, you know. I remember, what were we out for? We went to Peckerheads one night, and it was for, I remember, this is a long time ago, but like Mark was there. Dustin's brother Mark was there. And he like got in a fight with this dude. I mean, it was just, and I'm just like, Mark, what? You know what I mean? What? I mean, not that, you know, not that Mark can't handle himself. I just mean it was out of character.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I just, it was one of those nights, you know, it was always, we can have people on this thing. Dude, I have 4 people right now that's come to mind instantly whenever I think about stories that involve Dustin and these other people that we could sit here and tell. And some stories you may not even, you've probably heard most of them, but just incredible, like, how did you how did your night turn out this way? You know, I mean, yeah, it was, and I didn't, dude, I'm not crazy acting. You know, Dustin wasn't crazy acting. It wasn't a function of like us getting ourselves into these bad spots. It was just, it was almost
happened.
like we attracted this
The
craziness,
bad,
you know?
The bad or the weird stuff found
Yeah.
us. It's not that we went out looking for weird stuff to happen. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, dude, if you think that it can't happen, guess what? It will happen to me.
Yeah.
You know, anything. When I started in the business that I'm in, just weird stuff that I would, you know, ask my mentors or whatever about. I'd be like, okay, what if this happens? You know, and they're like, no, that'll never happen. And then like a month later,
It would happen.
some situations would pop up, and they'd be like, where are you finding these people at? You know, and I'm like,
yeah, I know. Well, that's, you know, my life's definitely that way too. Some of it may have to do with the way we look at things too. You know, I find humor in a lot of ways that people are just like, you know, how did you even think that was funny? You know, and maybe in the way somebody says something, or the way their personality is, or something like that. I find a lot of humor in people's actions and what they don't mean anything by it. I take it in a way that's humorous, you know.
it's funny.
Yeah.
funny.
When I'm describing somebody, it never fails. The way I describe someone is going to be, you know, and that's anybody, I guess, but I'm drastic. You know what I mean? And my observations of people is always like, you know, this guy, you know, I might say, this guy's got a 1970s mustache. This guy's a gay guy. I'm telling you, he's a 61-year-old gay guy. You know, in the 70s, this dude was gay. He's married now, but I guarantee this guy was gay. You know, and where somebody else would just say, well, this guy is just a dude.
Right.
You know what I mean? They wouldn't think about his facial hair. They might not think about anything like that, you know. So that's probably what a lot of it comes from. And you know, I'm sitting here thinking about just dumb stuff. And I guess some of the things I caused, you know, the dumb things that Dustin and I got into, I decided one time that we were going to do, I just told him I wanted to start doing Navy SEAL workouts. I was reading books about Navy SEALs and all this, and I was like, dude, I found this workout plan. Let's go, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you know, you're not going to be able to do these workouts. And that made me mad. You know what I mean? I'm like, yes, I can. And I'm like, well, how old was I then? I was in my 30s, you know, and I'm like, yes, I can do these workouts. And he's like, dude, no, you can't. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Tomorrow we're going to Carlton Lake at Robert's Cave, and I'm swimming across the lake.
Oh.
And he's like, look, don't. He's like, when's the last time you even swam?
He's like, put a life jacket on if you're going to do this.
Well, he was always being like practical.
Right.
He was like, when's the last time you even swam at all? Have you even been in the water? I'm like, no, but I'm swimming across Carlton Lake. I said, I can swim like a fish, dude. I've always been good at swimming. He's like, I've never seen you swim ever. I'm like, whatever, man. We're doing it tomorrow. So of course, and his poor wife would be there and she'd be listening. I'd show up at my workout stuff on whatever, and she'd be like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, we're going to Sardis and we're gonna do laps out to the little barrier, the buoys that tell the
Sardis.
We're gonna swim back and forth,
Yeah.
Yeah, we went down there once and did it, but
did it?
Yeah, we swam back and forth.
I remember that.
And people thought we were stupid. There's like families out there having a great day, and I'm taking it where I'm like serious, like we're combat swimming out to these buoys back. I'm like, Dustin, get serious. I was like, dude, I'm into it, dude. We got to do this. I've got this many laps, and he's like, I'm not swimming. And I get pissed at him every time.
I swear before we did this podcast thing, before we started recording, I thought, okay, we're going to tell funny stories, I'm sure, but I'm not going to laugh at them. I'm going to laugh, but I don't want my laughter to go into that mic, And so, and here I am laughing like a hyena, just like a hyena. I hate it. But anyway. So you guys were doing laps.
Well, okay. I want to go back because the swimming across Carlton Lake, we get out there that day, and there's like a couple of college girls out there swimming for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we get out of the vehicle, and I've got it in my mind. I've been doing push-ups and sit-ups. I was in pretty decent shape, and we were Dustin and I were working out. At one time, we worked out a lot, like 5 days a week for sure, no matter what. And I mean, we were taking it serious. I mean, it was trying to get in shape. And I decide I'm swimming across Carlton Lake, and he's like, you're going to drown. I'm going to go out there, and I'm just going to watch so that I can tell somebody what happened. He's convinced that I'm going to drown. So these college girls are out there randomly. I'm like, what? But I don't care. Dustin's like, dude, don't get out here and try to do this. There's girls out here. They're going to watch you, and you're not going to be able to swim. And it just fueled my fire. I was like, you're telling me I can't swim across this lake? I'm telling you. I'm about to do it. This whole time, I'm walking towards the water. I'm pissed. And I don't know if he was probably just juicing me. Because he knows I was dumb enough to get fired up about stuff like that. I'm like easily manipulated. And so I get out there, get in the water, and he gets in the water too. He goes with me. And these girls are like, we were just saying things like, Dustin, of course, to make me look stupid, he's like, oh, don't worry, my friend's fixing to swim across this lake and back. Look, you think he's going to make it? He's probably not. And they're laughing at me, and I'm laughing, and inside I'm like, stop doing that, I'm serious. Serious.
It doesn't seem like it's very far until you get out there.
Let me tell you something,
man.
man.
You realize how far it really is.
I swim out, where the concrete thing is out there. I swim out to that.
They thought it was funny because they did not think you were going to actually try to swim across the lake.
I kept on swimming.
Because people used to swim across the lake back in the 80s.
Well, why would you? You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of other things to do, but I had it in my head.
Well, that's why right there. Because it's not a big lake.
Right.
And it just seems like, hey, it's just like when we were kids climbing up trees or whatever. You're like,
well, I
went this far. Why not just go a little bit farther?
Well, I get out in the middle. Basically,
climbing trees.
I'm looking at the bank over there underneath those cliffs, and I'm thinking, dear God, because I'm so tired. I'm just putting my head down. Basically, I'm just swimming.
You got college girls watching you.
Yeah, and that fueled me a long way.
Absolutely.
But I get out there and I'm like, I can't.
Anybody watching you. If you're out there by yourself, you may have just sunk.
Yeah, I would have gave up I'd have been like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's a long way.
Right.
But anyway, so I swim out there and I'm tired, dude. I am so tired. But I don't want to let anybody know. So I'm just stroking. I get over to the bank, right? And I didn't know. Yeah, listen, man. This is a whole thing here. Get over to it, and I didn't know that there's like these.
No way to go.
It's like these plants. I don't even know what they are. They're growing in the water. So for like 8 or 10 feet from the shore, you start swimming into these things that are growing up underneath there, and it's creepy feeling. Like all I can think is there's got to be snakes. There's got to be water moccasins and stuff in this. So I start looking. I'm like, well, I've got to rest. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm thinking I'm about to drown because I'm so tired. I get over there and I'm like creeped out for just a second. Dustin, I can hear him yelling something across the lake, at me. Blah, 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 blah. And all I can imagine is, I thought you were swimming back, have a great time walking back around the lake or something like that. So I get back in the water. I'm like, I got to make it back. And dude, I legitimately, I get probably 15 feet from the bank going back over. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to make it. Dude, I'm going to drown. I'm not getting cramps or anything like that, but I'm just like, I am so exhausted. So I roll over on my back, dude. And I don't backstroke. I'm just like basically just like paddling and kind of pushing slowly. My ears are underwater. I can hear him talking shit or whatever it is across the lake. And I'm just paddling slow. I bet it took me 30 minutes to get back across that lake. Dude, I was so tired by the time I got back, and I would turn over and I would dog paddle.
So you started getting on your back when you just left the bank from the other side?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And had to go all the way back like that. I was so tired, dude. I was never so glad. Okay, now I'm exhausted, right? The girls are still there.
Well, yeah.
Now, they're not talking to Dustin. They're talking to themselves. They're thinking we're a couple of weirdos, I'm sure. No telling what he had said while I was gone. You know what I mean? I get back over to the bank, dude, and when my feet finally touch, as soon as they can touch, before you get out, you know what I mean? Like just past that concrete thing, it's shallow enough that I can touch. As soon as my feet touch, dude, I'm on my tippy toes. So glad that I'm not dead, drowning in the middle of Carlton Lake. I'm not kidding, dude. I remember being so exhausted that, and you can't, I was just like barely able, but there's people. So I'm trying to look like I'm not phased.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, told you I could make it.
Game face.
And I don't know if you probably don't have to do this because you're not out of shape, but like.
Oh, I'm out of shape.
Whenever I'm breathing hard, if I want to steady my voice where it doesn't sound like I'm dying, I have to hold my breath. I have to suck in air and be like, and I was like, don't worry, I'm really not all that tired. That was pretty easy. You know what I mean? Dude.
You're making me laugh, dude.
And these girls get up and they're just like, oh, this freak's back. And they leave or whatever. And Dustin's like, I thought you were going to die. I said, I don't know how I did not die. And he's like, I cannot swim out there and get you. So that was, now that was my Navy SEAL workouts that I got into, dude.
Stop making me laugh.
I'm telling you, and that's, we could have his wife on here to ask her.
I'm just picturing Dustin, man, just watching you, and he's probably as far out as he can go, right? I mean, I'm guessing, or is he about knee deep? Or
well, at first they stayed. He was at the concrete thing, but I guess he got bored or whatever. It took me a long time. I'm talking about a long time to get over there and back.
Yeah.
Well, he gets bored or whatever and comes back, and he's basically like at the rocks right there where you get out of the swimming area, and he's just sitting there. No shirt on, whatever. And he's just chilling. And those girls are there. But they, like I said, it's like I think they just wanted to see if I would die. You know what I mean? I think they stayed long enough and they're like, this freak's not going to die. No more fun. And they just left.
Boo.
But, things like that are, I think that's why he hung out with me. You know what I mean? Because I was just dumb enough to get myself into these situations.
Well, same here. Same with me and same with Trent, I'm sure. And, there was a lot of us that were.
That's a dude we need to get on here that I think would have some good stories.
He would have some great stories. It's not really a great story, but just the story the first time I saw Dustin was at my house when I was a kid. And I guess his mom or somebody had moved a few houses down up on the hill, and it was a snow day. There's a lot of snow on the ground, and he's wanting to go sledding, right? So I hear a knock on the door, and hey, and he knew who I was. I did not know who he was, but he knew my name. Does that surprise you about Dustin?
No, not at all.
We're in oh my gosh, what is that city that's close to Dallas?
Irvin.
No.
Sherman.
Starts with a D, I think.
Fort Worth, maybe.
That's not a
Denton?
D. Denton. We're in Denton.
Okay.
We're at a Cracker Barrel. This is years later. I'm going to go back to my previous
Go
story.
ahead, dude. No. I love this kind of stuff. Go ahead.
So we're in Denton, right? And we're going to go eat at Cracker Barrel. We helped Trevor Brinkley move to Denton. And Dustin sees somebody sitting at a table that he knows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so he, of course, talks to him for 30 minutes. I mean, hanging out with Dustin was like almost going to the store with your mom as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, she's going to run into somebody she knows, and you're going to sit there staring at, Uncle Ben Rice or, Wonder Bread for 3 hours.
Yeah.
While she talks. And that's the way it was with Dustin. I mean, you went anywhere with him. He knew somebody. It didn't matter where. And he's going to talk to him for a long time. Oh, yeah, because that's just the way Dustin was, And we're both talkative people. But he took the cake when it come to seeing anybody he knew. I mean, if he knew so-and-so that he didn't, it was just, for me, you have to be pretty close in my circle for me, or just somebody that I really like and I haven't, seen in a long time or whatever. For the most part, if I see you and, see most people in public, I'm going to take a left, I'm going to go away because I may
You don't
run
want to get
into,
caught up talking or whatever.
like Dustin, I may run into a guy that's, that wants to talk my head off. And so anyways, so I was like, oh my gosh, we're in this Cracker Barrel, which it wasn't that big of a deal, but it just a lot of times, you knew you were going to sit there and Dustin was going to talk to this guy and you had no idea who it was. And Dustin will tell you who his kids were, how old they were, their birthdays, where they live, their address, their uncles and nieces and
he probably knows their birthday. That
Yes.
dude, that's how I know everybody. That's how I know your birthday. That's how I know everybody's. He knew everybody's birthday.
He was like a walking calendar. Like he could, it was like you're like, dude, you got. When you see, John Ramirez or whatever, John, whoever, are you? Do you pull out your phone and be like, yeah, okay, June 24th is his birthday, and his kid's name is Sally, and whatever, and.
Nah, he just knew. Well, that's why he was a good salesman too. Whenever he was selling screens, right before he got killed, it was a funny thing, dude. Like he would take me places. Okay, the funny thing about Dustin was he would he had this. He started taking me on his sales things, right? I didn't understand what he did at the time very well, so it was kind of one of those things where I was like. We would be talking or something. He'd like, hey man, I got to run out to this rig. If you don't have anything to do, jump in with me and we'll go out there. And I'm like, okay. Well, I didn't know what he was doing. So I would go out, I'd get in the truck and we'd go drive out to wherever it was. We might drive to Daisy, Oklahoma. We might drive, I don't know, anywhere, backside of nowhere.
Wardville.
We would get to this rig out in the middle of nowhere and he'd say, come with me. And I'm like, what? And he's like, come with me in here. This pusher's hilarious. Come in here, blah, blah, blah. So I'd walk in with them and this dude had no more idea who I was. Didn't know why I was there. I could tell by the look on his face. Dustin would be like, hey, I was talking to you the other day about playing guitar. Well, this guy plays guitar too. I'm talking about putting me on the spot. Didn't tell me anything about what we were doing. He plays guitar, you were asking me about kind of guitars. Luke, tell him some good guitars because I didn't know any the other day. And I'm like, me and this guy are looking at each other and we do not know each other. We have no basis for knowing each other. Dustin's trying to sell this guy screens.
Right.
This dude has plenty of things to do.
Right.
Besides stand there and talk to us, And when we'd get out there, I'd be like, what am I doing here, Dustin? He's like, well, I knew you knew, guitar brands. This dude's wanting to know. I was like, why don't you just ask me and I could have sent you a text message or something with some guitar brands or whatever. He's like, nah, man, I was bored. I want you to come with me. Or he might pull me up to a rig and get out and not come back for an hour or two.
That's what I'm saying. What's worse, though? Being in there for an hour or two with the guy or being out in the truck where you can listen to whatever you want to listen to?
Dude, he left me and Amber one time in the truck for, it was over an hour. And we didn't even know each other all that well. And he went into a rig, into a pusher's shack, and was in there forever. And we were, it was like crickets, We didn't know, what do I talk to her about? I didn't know her at the time, So I'm like, Well, he's been gone a long time. It was like one of those dinner for schmucks type moments where it's just like you don't know what to say or whatever. And now I would ask him, I'm like, dude, where have you been? He was like, I'm there talking to this guy, blah, blah, blah. He thought nothing of it. You know what I mean?
It felt like 5 minutes to him.
Yeah, I mean,
same way with when you and him and I would sit at Pizza Hut till 3 o'clock in the morning. And they were like, all right, we're done cleaning. We're gonna have to close the door. Oh, was it already 3 o'clock? Okay, dang it.
And we go out in the parking lot and talk
more
until daylight.
Yes, talk till daylight. And then when we would tell everybody what we would do, especially like when I would come home and Amy was like, I'm like, I swear.
What have you been doing? Why would you be out till 4 o'clock in the morning?
Till 4 o'clock in the morning. Or anybody would be like, people would be going to work and drive by and we'd be out there. Yeah. They're going to work.
Yeah, and see, I didn't have anybody to answer to. So I was fine. Even my job at the time, my boss was in Tulsa and I never saw him. Right. He didn't know what I had absolutely no obligations. My job was, I kind of set my own hours and that kind of thing like that. So for me, it wasn't that big a deal. I mean, it wasn't normal. I guess it was normal for us.
It was normal for us to go to Pizza Hut at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock and sit there until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock when they were finished. It just got to where they would just shut the doors when Pizza Hut closed and they would just start cleaning.
Yeah.
And we would sit there. We did it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. People don't understand.
But see, I was a good tipper. And that's one reason why we got to stay, because I was real good about tipping. You guys, not so much. But you guys had families, and I didn't. I had my boys, but I wasn't married or anything like that, so I had nothing to do.
I think it was. I think it was just. It was all the people. We became friends with all the people in Pizza Hut, and they were like, "Okay, we're just going to shut the door," because at first they were like, "Okay, guys, the first time, guys, we closed 45 minutes ago, and we really need to clean," and we were like.
Well, go ahead. We're not stopping you. I'll pick my feet up while you mop under where I'm at. Go ahead, dude. We're talking here.
So that's the way it became.
Well, that's like the guy that was managing Pizza Hut at the time. I've seen him since, and I know he never talks to me. And I know he's like, oh, Jesus. He's terrified I'm going to start talking to him. I'm sure. He just keeps on moving or whatever. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. But back to when I first met Dustin, I remember looking out the window. My mom or somebody was like, "Hey Ben, there's some kids here want to go outside and sled." And we had been sledding, but it was early that morning, I think, and we had been sledding the last couple of days because back then it snowed, and when we got snow, it was real snow. You could sled for a few days at a time. And so, anyways, I looked out the window and I see this big boy. And for me as a kid. I was real big into playing baseball and real big into riding bicycles, and I was real big into all sports. Basketball and baseball mainly, and football in the yard. So
the majors, those are the major sports to me.
Right, exactly. So anytime, that's how I gauge my friends, man. I was always looking for another player. I didn't want somebody that couldn't do.
So you were thinking, this dude can't do nothing.
When I looked at the window, I'm being straight up with you, and I told Dustin this a million times. I said, dude, I remember the first time I saw you, and I thought, oh my God,
I don't want to play with this guy. He can't do anything.
He's going to sled down the hill one time, and he's going to be like, I'm going home, and he was not that type of kid.
Yeah.
And his nickname was Twinkle Toes for a reason, because he'd do some things. He could just dance across the floor. He made it so, as big of a guy as he was, he did things that, a lot of people couldn't even do that were my size,
Yep.
He just was real coordinated, and so it was a big surprise. He didn't, and I didn't really hang out with him that much because he didn't go, whoever's house he was at, he didn't go down there that often. So it was years later, and he didn't even go to Weberton School at that time. I think he went to Panola or Red Oak.
Red Oak, yeah.
And so
he called it Buzzard Gap.
Yeah, Buzzard Gap. So it was a long time after that we really, started hanging out and stuff. But I just remember him from that day, the first day I saw him. I remember he was standing on my porch. I remember looking out and thinking, because I remember one time my mom was going to babysit a couple of kids for a friend of hers for the summer. They lived in Georgia or whatever. It was a boy and a girl, and they were about my age. And I remember thinking, I've got a ball player. Awesome. I hope he's good at sports because I'm going to be stuck with him the whole summer.
Yeah.
And when he showed up and I threw a ball to him, I mean, that's just the way it was for me. It was, I'm going to find out.
Did you even speak to him?
Right hand.
Did you talk to him or anything? You just threw a ball like this.
I remember getting out of the car at my granny's house, and he walked over to me in the yard, and I had a baseball, and I remember tossing it to him. I mean, it was that simple. I mean, it wasn't that I was shallow or.
But didn't you hate it whenever you find out the kid couldn't do anything? It was always
he was like this when I threw it to him. It was like throwing to a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and you're like, and then they're useless too. You're like,
yes.
All right, you know.
Yes, I'm not kidding.
I was the same way, man. I can't say anything.
It wasn't like I was going to be mean to him or anything.
Right.
I wasn't that type of kid, but I was very disappointed internally that this kid had no idea what he was doing, period. He had never played a sport in his life. And by the end of the summer, long story short, he was really good at baseball.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
we
weird.
played a lot, and I just, you know.
Well, there's nothing like a little bit of, being made fun of by your peers to make you pick something up a little bit faster.
Well,
you know
I don't think I
mean?
made fun of him. I was just like, well, this is what we're doing. So
Dude, I was horrible.
You can go over there and sit and, do whatever you want to do over there, but here's some of my friends were playing baseball. So just grab a glove and let's just start playing,
I wish I'd have been a nicer kid like that because I was always like, I mean, I might not even be good at something, but if you were worse than me, then you were terrible. And I'm like, dude, pick it up. Let's go. This is terrible. I get on to Carter, my son, about talking to people that way, but I did the same thing when I was 12. I was just like, dude,
right.
If we're playing kickball, what I mean, and you can't kick the ball into play, I'm like, you are awful. This is an easy game and you cannot play. Let's do this, so. And Dustin, like you said, watching the man do things. The first time I ever saw him dance, he did the cha-cha slide. I'd never even heard of the cha-cha slide. I didn't even know what it was. And I went to Tahlequah with him and Dwayne Griffith. And Dwayne introduced me to Dustin a long time before I ever hung out with him. Him and Dustin were buddies, and he was like, this is my buddy Dustin. I don't even necessarily remember the day. I just remember knowing that kid was somebody that Dwayne ran around with. And, Dwayne tight all of our lives, man. Lived either in the same house. We lived a lot of years in the same house or not very far away. And I was kind of rough to him whenever he was real little, but as he got older, of course, we got really close, still real close. But, that's where I learned things about Dustin that, he had that white Blazer that he drove, like the early 90s mid-size Blazer or whatever. We were going to take it to Tahlequah, and, my dad taught me about checking oil and that kind of thing like that before I could drive. It was like a big thing. If you're going on a trip, you got to check the oil when you get gas to leave, yada, yada, yada. So I said, Dustin, we need to check the oil before we leave. And he's like, huh? I was like, I want to check the oil. And he's like, okay. So I go, okay. I flip the hood up. He's getting gas. And I'm like, so where's the dipstick at? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, I've never checked the oil in this thing. I was like, what? Pull the dipstick. There's nothing on it. It's like black burnt looking. There's nothing on it, and there's no oil in this thing. He's been driving it for months at this time. So we went and bought some really cheap oil out of JR's Food Mart. Like I bought like 3 quarts of oil for like $1.50 or something. It was some crappy oil. Put in it. We went to Tahlequah. And we got up there and went to this little bar thing. It was like an 18 and over dance place or whatever. I don't even remember the name of it or anything. And the cha-cha slide comes on. I'd never heard it in my life. Dustin's like, oh, time for the cha-cha slide. He gets up, and I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, this dude's about to dance? Really? This is going to be sad. You know what's going through my head? I'm like, this is going to be real sad. And then he takes off, and I'm just like, and all these girls get up and start dancing on him and with him because he's that good. You know what I mean? I was just like, when he came back, I was like, I can't believe this, dude. And of course, you know, for him, he always looked at it as like, of course I can.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would go, dude, I can't believe, you know, that you can dance like that. And he's like, what? Man, let me tell you something, you know, or whatever. And he'd, you know, go on and tell me how stupid I was for not realizing. But that was the first night that we slept in the same bed.
Oh.
And he was in his whitey tighties while we slept on a futon together, he and I. The size we are, they stick us in the futon.
A futon?
Yeah. Fold the futon down. Me and Big D
That's
slept on the futon in his underwear.
That's like a twin size. Well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, you think it was comfortable? Not at all. Not even a little bit. Very crowded, you know? But anyway, we were, after that, though, was really when we got to be really close friends. You know, we kind of.
Well, yeah, you got to be. I mean, how can you not be friends with,
Well, we
close
were
with a guy that.
Well, nobody
you
else
slept
was
with?
cool with laying down with this dude in his underwear. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I don't care. He's, you know, I mean, I'm like, whatever. You know, I don't get worried about that kind of thing. I mean,
Right.
now if he'd have tried to go to bed naked, it'd have been a problem. But he didn't do that, thank God. You know, which I guess Whitey Tighties is pretty close.
Especially with another man.
And everybody had a good laugh about it, you know. And we can have some people on here who can back that story up.
Where
They
did
can
you
tell-
stay at? Where were you at?
We were staying.
You stayed in Tahlequah?
Yeah, we
Oh,
stayed
okay.
with Luke Underwood
Oh, okay.
up there. He was living up there then, so
I think we can get Luke on here.
he can back it up, dude. He knows very well that story I just told. So
Oh, Dustin, 6 years. 6 years.
almost. Yeah,
May 31st.
don't seem like it.
No.
Does not. Now I try to go out there. You know, I went out to his grave. It's been a few months ago. It's been a little bit since I've been by there. And it's funny, man. You know, everybody. You know, his sister and a lot of people do a really good job keeping up with it out there, keeping it cleaned up and all that kind of thing like that. Dude, and it's weird to go out there because I always go by myself. You know, I mean, I don't go out there and sob or anything like that. But I mean, I just go out there, just kind of hang out. You know, I don't get this feeling that he's like sitting out there with me or none of that kind of thing like that. I just kind of go because, you know, it's the last place I knew he was. So I kind of go out there to hang out or whatever. And it's strange how it still basically looks the same. It's been so long but it's still out there, still looks the same, still feels the same and everything. It's like, God, man, I can't believe time gets by so fast, you know? I mean, for the first couple of years after he died, it was like, I would have to really go back and think about how long it had been. I would lose track of how long, you know, for the first couple of years, definitely, I would be like,
Is this the
what
first year?
What
or is this
year
the
did
second
that
year?
happen? You know, I mean, because there was no, it disrupted everything, you know, and it changed so many things about my life that it was like, it was like this, like I said to you that one time, it's like there's this time in your life, there's things that happen where it was before that happened and before and after that happened. And that's one of those things where, you know, your life was a certain way before and then it was a certain way afterward. So it was one of those deals where, as far as getting used to it or whatever you want to say, as much as you get used to that kind of thing, it was like, wow, dude, you know, I can't believe it's been 2 years, you know. Not that I didn't care. It's the opposite, you know. It's the inverse of that. It's like,
It's still fresh.
well, I'm not tracking it. You know what I mean? I wasn't keeping up with how long it had been in my mind at the time because I was just like, you know, it's 'cause that part of your life's kind of chaos, or it was for me. It was just like, you know, we've talked about it before about having dreams about him and that kind of thing like that.
I
You know,
still have dreams about him.
I haven't had a dream
Often.
about him in a long time. It's probably been, I don't dream that much anymore though. I think it's because I've got like, what is it where you got to wear the mask? What the heck is that called? Sleep apnea. I think I have like sleep apnea because I've gotten so fat and everything, you know what I mean? I don't think I'm sleeping enough to dream. But, you know, we would have dreams and it would be just, you know, I remember talking about it with you, you know, and just be like, dude, it was like, and it would feel like he was there. You know,
Yes.
like it was so real. I would wake up and feel weird.
I would feel, and I still do feel like it's like him visiting me and actually saying, hey,
Right.
it's okay, you know.
I remember having a dream and it feeling when I was talking to him in my mind, of course it was registering, he
Yes.
died.
Yes.
But then it was almost like it was a misunderstanding. We were
Right.
sitting there talking and it was like, you know how it is in dreams anyways. I mean, there could have been a bunny rabbit hopping around smoking a cigarette and it would have been fine. But I mean, but it's still at the same time, it was like, you know, dude, you know, it was like,
It's not okay.
it was never me turning around going, dude, you died. You know, it was just more of like a, hey, you know, it was like we just pick up where
for me, I would do that.
Really?
Yeah. I would cry. I'm just about every dream that he's in, I cry.
Really?
Yes. And I'd like just hug him and he's like, dude, it's okay. And I'm like, but you died, man. You're, you know, and I can't explain it, but for me, that's what he does. I mean, he's always like he's telling me it's okay. And
That's what he would do.
It's not okay, dude. It's not okay. 'Cause you're not here. You're not here. You
Well,
know?
and that's
he's
the
like,
essence
yes.
of him, dude. If he could have, you know, if it was,
Yes.
if he was here,
Yes.
you know, like outside of that situation and he was there, you know, if it happened with somebody else, he'd be like, dude, that's why like at his funeral and stuff, you know, I know I saw a lot of people looking at me and they were expecting me to like cry and all that kind of thing like that. But all I could think was, if I started crying, he would be making fun of me. You know what I mean? He would be like, what a bitch. You know what I mean? He'd be like, are you kidding me? You know, do not cry about this stuff. And which, I mean, it's not like it gave me a whole lot of comfort with what was going on, but I just mean, you know, I just felt that, I guess that the way that he influenced my life or whatever kind of carried over even after he died. It still does. Still to this day, you know, I mean, I said something, I was talking to Brandy when we were out of town yesterday, and I was just like, 6 years, almost 6 years, and this dude is I'm still going off of some things that he told me, you know. I mean, as far as sometimes he would come up with some good advice, you know. I mean, every now and then he could look at my situation like anybody can when you're looking at, you know, outside looking in.
Yeah.
You know, and he would go, dude, you know, why are you doing this? Or why, you know, when this is happening, don't do that. And immediately I would be like, oh, he's right. You know, I mean, I would never say, you're right. You know, I would always be like, shut up, you know, or whatever. But I don't know. It was that's one of those things that, you know, I mean, you and I have talked about it. I have not ever really just sat down and, you know, definitely not in public. I mean,
Not like this. No.
I couldn't imagine. Well, this is a weird forum because I couldn't imagine sitting down in a group of people and go, hey, let me tell you how I feel about Dustin and everything that happened, you know, or, you know, but
Right.
I mean, it seems sort of okay to do in this setting or whatever.
I mean, so.
To me, you know, I think it's inevitable for you and I because, you know, we met through him and he was a huge part of our friendship and still is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at some point you got to address it because, I mean, he's a big old fat reason, you know, that we're sitting here talking or whatever.
He is the
you know?
reason. I would have never started hanging out with you, especially after you said, hey, go by so-and-so's house and check and see if there's anybody with my wife.
I know, dude. I know. This guy is a psycho.
I'll never forget it. No, I wasn't thinking you were a psycho. I was just like, this guy's not the Lucas Johnson I've heard of.
I was not myself at that time. I mean, I'll freely admit that.
But yeah, he's the reason. 100%. What, did I just spike? Did I just spike on
Oh,
you?
no. No.
Okay.
No, I was thinking. I wasn't even looking at that, dude. I was just thinking about what you were saying.
I thought, is my mic too loud?
No.
Yeah,
you're
if
good.
it's on, it's too loud. That's how much I don't like my voice.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that end of it, but
But anyways, he, I think I've mentioned it a couple times on Facebook, and I'm talking about a couple times over these 6 years that, you know, I dreamed about him or whatever, but I've never really gotten into, you know, when you tell people your dreams, I was like, I don't care.
Right.
Trent's the biggest one, dude. If I tell him, dude, I dreamed this last night, he stops listening.
he's just like, shut
I
up.
do not want to hear your dreams, dude. And I'm like, but listen. And he's like, nope, unless,
Yeah. Yeah, Dustin would do that to me too. I mean, he was kind of my sounding board for everything. I mean, and half the time, more than 3/4 of the time, I wouldn't listen to what he said. It was almost like I just wanted to say it out loud, and then
Right.
he'd be like, "Dude," it was always Luke. Whenever I'd come up with some harebrained idea,
You're like, I'm going to say this, but whatever his reaction is, I'm not listening.
right? I'm just saying it to say it. Right. You're here. I'm saying it to you.
And if he goes along with me, then I'm listening to him. But if he doesn't, I'm not listening. Yeah. So I'm going to do this regardless of what he says, his reaction.
Yeah. It was, dude, I a lot of the stories I can't even, there's some of them I can't remember enough of the details to get into with that dude to kind of illustrate my point. But, the amount of people that I know, that's just like when we start thinking about people to have on this podcast, and I think about the link that I have with them because of Dustin, and outside of my cousin Dwayne, who I knew from birth, basically, almost everybody that I think of that just pops into my head, I mean, there's a couple of my friends that I've talked to and different things like that about coming on eventually or whatever. But I mean, most of the people are people that I'm connected to because of him.
Yeah.
And I know so many crazy, funny things happen that I think would be interesting. Like I would like to hear those kind of stories from other people that he was connected to so many of them that it seems like a good idea. I don't want to say that this thing is like in memory of him. That's a little bit too much, but I'm just saying, like, it's weird how his influence is like almost like weaved in to everything.
Yeah.
It's like you can, even though you and I can have long conversations and I don't sit there and think about him, or I don't say, what if he was here? Or, he may not even cross my mind while we're talking or anything, but inevitably, it has something along the way. It will have something to do with him.
Yes.
This many years, and I think it'll always be that way. I mean,
right.
I don't know. He was there for a long time. He was a huge part of my life. I mean, like, dude, we talked every day. I'm talking about every day, no matter what. And like I said, I would share things with him where I'd be like, hey man, I was thinking about this or that, and most of the time he'd be like, don't do that. That's stupid. Don't, A lot of times I do it anyways, but
about every time, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I would tell him things and he was never impressed with anything I would tell him. I'd be like, dude, I'm buying this and this and this. And he was like, why? Or something like that, and I was always pissed at him. I was like, oh, you don't ever like anything that I tell you,
Him and I would, man, I've been to strip clubs before. Just get that out there, right?
I never have. I don't know.
I've been. Okay. And there were times where we would like go to the jukebox and play some R. Kelly song or H-Town, knocking boots. And we would sing every single word to each other in front of everyone. No one else was in the room. And we would sing every word to each other and dance while we were doing it. And everybody was looking at us like, why are you guys here?
Yeah. Oh, he was into whatever it seemed like.
And we would cruise town, and anywhere we go, we were putting R&B on because I did not allow him to play Red Dirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With me in there, and he'd always would try. And I'd say, well, dude, you put it in there. I'm going to hit the eject button, and I'm throwing it out the window. I don't want to hear any of it, And he's like, what? I'm like, dude, let's just, it's junk music. I don't want it's not even music. I was like, man, come on, listen to, Randy Rogers or, well, I went to a Stoney LaRue concert at Peckerheads, and it gave me a headache.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
It gave me a real bad headache. I was like, no, dude, no.
Yeah.
Never.
Oh, man.
And it's back in the day, I was like, this is, now I'm just like, if you listen to Red Dirt, that's cool. I don't have anything against it. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
Oh, he was huge into it, man.
Yes, he was. Jeez.
I remember, especially right after Dwayne and he got out, or I guess you guys all got out of high school, is whenever, those guys were running around. I was already running around like a moron, and that kind of thing. But we would hang out a lot, and they are the ones who got me listening to, even though I listened to like country, I was listening to mostly rock music at that time, but they are the ones who started. I'd never heard of Red Dirt. I'd never heard of Stoney the Roo. Dustin's who introduced me to those guys. I remember he was the first one. All those bands like that, those Red Dirt deals he introduced me to. I mean, he took me to 2 or 3 Red Dirt concerts, and it wasn't my top music. I didn't like it the most, where he loved it, so I would go with him. But, it was a weird deal. Like, he and I didn't hang out like daily until Dwayne went into the military. When Dwayne finally, I remember the day we had been hanging out, dude. I mean, him and Dwayne had worked together and all this kind of things like that. And I wasn't really hanging out with them a whole lot. I mean, I was hanging around with like Chris Turner, a lot of guys that were my age, whenever they were running around a lot, I was hanging out with like Keith Dill and a lot of people like that back in my early days. And so I wasn't around them very much, but like I said, those guys kind of grew up and got lives, and I didn't, whenever I was old enough, I should have, I didn't. And so like the next crop of guys comes out of high school, I'm like, let's go party. And, of course I knew Dwayne, so we would run around. And when he went to the military, it kind of left me and Dustin like sitting there, and we were talking about it one day. We were going to pick Dwayne up because he was fixing to go. And we rode around. Like, I remember the last night we rode around with Dwayne before he actually left to go into the Air Force. And I had just started dating my first wife at the time. And it was a weird thing, dude, because we were like riding around and we listened to songs and cried. Because we didn't, we were like, Dwayne's gone, blah, blah, blah. Of course, we were drinking. But, and it was like from then we were close.
Right.
We got really close. And then, of course, while I was married to my first wife, him and Dwayne came over a couple of times and stuff like that. But then, of course, after we split up, then me and Dustin, he went right back to like we never left each other, and we hit the ground running, partying and just running around. And he would invite me to stuff, or I would have had no life. I mean, I legitimately wasn't going anywhere or anything. It's like when he heard I was single, he's like, hey, what have you been up to? I'm like, nothing, just sitting around. Well, come over, or let's meet me and we'll go over here, or he'd come pick me up or something like that, And so we run around, and I think he was probably just bored, and he knew I was just dumb enough I'd get into something stupid, so
he would meet me at my house before I would even get off work. I mean, he'd be in my driveway,
Yeah.
Before I knew you. He would be in my driveway when I lived in Wilburton. I mean, I knew when I turned right from the highway and headed up the hill to my house, I knew that
his vehicle would be sitting there.
That expedition was going to be sitting in the driveway.
Dude, yeah, he's oh man, I have a million stories that I can't. Like I said, without him here, I can't tell them correctly, because a lot of times I was doing stupid stuff, so he had more knowledge of what was actually going on than me. I mean, I was just like rolling with whatever was happening. I was going over here and doing and saying. And
didn't you used to drive a short wide Chevrolet pickup, like a white one?
No, I drove a gray short wide truck that was lowered.
Gray.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Dude, I lowered that thing. What was funny is it had really wide tires on it, so it would like rub on the fender wheels. Mm-hmm. He would make so much fun of me, dude. He was like, God, this truck. And it had been, I don't know if it had been wrecked or what, but it was cowbellied, it was like dipped down in the middle. And he was like, dude, your truck looks like shit. He was like, this thing is a piece of junk. You need to get rid of it. And I was like, you don't even have anything to drive, you're riding around with me or whatever. But I remember he bought a Dodge pickup I saw him at Handy Stop one day, and he was like so proud of the short white Dodge pickup. I think it was a Dodge. Pretty sure.
Wasn't it maroon?
Yeah, I think so. Matter of fact, he was going to work on the pipeline.
That's
that
the one
day
his
when I saw him.
stepdad started driving, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know what happened to that truck.
Was it maroon?
Because he had, I remember him. No, I thought it was a light color. I can't remember now.
It was gray. It
Yeah.
was a gray. It was a gray Dodge pickup. Yes, I remember it.
But like, anyway, yeah, I saw him down there one day. He was proud of that truck. He's like, dude, I just got it. I'm headed out of town. He was going pipeline, and he's gonna go work on the pipeline.
And,
EC Lawson and all them.
Was it when he went with Trent to Iowa?
Maybe so. I don't know.
I went up there and was working in Iowa. That's when. Well, I could say this. I could save this story for when Trent comes on, but that's when I played a trick on Trent. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I played a trick on him, and so he had his mom call me when I worked at O'Reilly's. He had his mom call me and tell me that he had been hit by a car, and that she didn't think he was gonna make it, and she was headed up to the hospital. And I said, Claudia, listen, it is okay. I'll go up there with you. Let's, let me, when I get out, I was just gonna leave. I said, let's go. And she was like playing. I know.
That's a sick trick.
I hope she sees this. Of course, she would laugh about it, and of course we were all laughing about it then. Or well.
She was at the chief dinner, by the way.
Yeah.
That I went to.
So then she told me that she was just kidding. Like, I was like it wasn't registering.
That must be where Trent gets his sense of humor from then.
Like,
if his mom's willing to go along with that.
Yeah, and she was like, I'm just kidding, Ben. He's fine. He just want me to come play a trick on you, But I'd already been like, I don't know. Like, I was ready to go to Iowa. I was on my way already with her. I was like, let's go. We got to.
That's a mean trick, dude. That's
I was thinking, I'm going to call Dustin right when I get off the phone, and see what's going on.
Yeah.
But.
Oh, man. I see. And those are some of the things. Trent could fill me in on a lot of that time.
Yeah.
When they were, because I wasn't in contact with those guys at that time. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was I didn't necessarily completely lose track, but it was like I'd talk to him very seldom.
Well, Dustin, Dustin went through his, friends. So he would hang out with so-and-so for a while, and then he would go hang out with so-and-so for a while. And it was like, he just didn't want, so-and-so to get mad at him. So he felt like he needed to be, run around with him for a little while. And then, and you might go through town and wave at him, and that was all, whatever. And then you're like, okay, all right, well, in a couple of weeks, and when you get tired of that guy, you're going to come back and hang out with me more.
Well, that's like he had people that he hung around with, especially whenever when he was staying with Amber all the time. There were people that I wasn't. It's not that I disliked him or that I wasn't friendly with him or anything, but I didn't know him all that well, and he would inevitably set up these big old like cookouts, or they'd be going and doing something. He would just bring me. I would not know. He would not tell me we were going to something, and everybody would be surprised to see me. You know what I mean? Because he didn't tell anybody he was bringing anybody.
Because he knew I wouldn't have went.
Right.
Not that I didn't like the people or whatever.
Right, but I'd been like, dude, I don't know those guys. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna hang out. You go have fun. No, he would just be like, hey, come ride. We're gonna ride around, blah blah blah, and then we go, oh, I'm gonna run by over here, and we're gonna see these guys. And I'm like, what? Or his family. He would do that to me with his family. I'd like show up and nobody would know I was coming. Of course they were always welcoming and that kind of thing like that, but like we would pull up and talk to like Mark's dad, Mark, and Dustin would start telling him stories, and then he would like point to me and have me talk and stuff like that. And I'd be like, I don't know. I didn't know Mark, Big Mark. And
right.
So, and he would be sitting there like, why are we talking to this dude? Like, who is this guy you got with you or whatever? But I can't count how many times that Dustin put me on the spot like that, But
he loved to. He was, like you said earlier, he just liked to.
Well, you know, a lot of times he wouldn't even think about it on that level.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes he was just, I mean, he wouldn't even necessarily be setting me up. It was just like,
He just wanted you to get to know him.
yeah, we were friends and he was going somewhere. So
And he knew him,
he wanted
so-
me to be with him. I mean, he had training in Houston twice. And I went down there and stayed in his room. He was not supposed to have anybody with him. And I went down there and would stay in his room and sit in the room all day while he'd go to training. And then when he'd come back, we'd go out and go hang out, you know, or go drink or whatever in Houston. You know, that's a lot of the reason we had a room next to the hotel in Houston. This is a funny little thing that nobody really knows. It's not a big thing, but like this, the reason I started liking Luke Combs so much, the singer, is because he has a song called Houston, We Got a Problem. And in that song, he's talking about he's got a room with a view of the empty Astrodome. And it made me think about that time Dustin had a room next to the airport in Houston. And I think it's on the north side of Houston. But anyways, and it was the suckiest hotel, dude. There was when you look out the window, there was like nothing out there. It wasn't the Astrodome, but I remember thinking, you know, this is the shittiest setup ever, and I'm locked here all day long. No ride. He had to take his company truck. Nobody even knew, you know, I'd go down there with him for a few days, and I would just sit there. And we were next to the hotel, so we would go to the restaurant, or not, we were next to the airport. We would go to the restaurant in the top level at the airport and eat. And he would strike up conversations with rank strangers that were flying out about where they were headed or what they'd been, you know what I mean?
You never met a stranger, though.
Right. And I would sit there and be like really awkwardly quiet. You know, I mean, I'm not normally a really quiet person, but if I don't know somebody, generally I try to be quiet. You know, I don't want to be loud and all that kind of thing.
I feel like they don't really want to talk to me.
Right. And which Dustin, you know, was just being friendly or whatever. And we, you know, like we met a guy, an old dude that was wearing a suit and had like a briefcase, and he wasn't even from Tulsa. He's like laid over in Tulsa or something like that, or not in Tulsa. I'm sorry, in Houston, and he had a long conversation with him. I didn't know this dude. I sat there and ate my food and didn't say anything. Dustin found out all of the details about this dude we'd never met.
His kids' names,
and we would watch planes take off. And I remember talking about, I was like, this is the coolest thing about this trip. Is getting to sit here and watch these planes take off because this trip sucks, you know, because his training was long, you know. I mean, you have to be there at like 8 o'clock in the morning, didn't come back till like 5 in the evening. So I'd sit in the room and watch TV all day, you know, watch Jerry Springer or some shit, you know, or whatever was on. But he didn't care, you know, he didn't see it as inconvenience, which I didn't see it as inconvenience either. I wouldn't have went, you know, if it sucked completely or whatever. It was just odd.
Both trips were at the same hotel?
Where did we stay the other time? I don't remember. I just remember that one because I remember it felt like I was like destitute, like I was stranded. You know what I mean? I could have called a taxi, I guess, or whatever, but I wasn't supposed to be in the room. You know, he checked into the room, one person.
Right.
You know, I mean, as far as they were concerned, he was paying for one person to stay in the room, so I had to sneak in the damn room, you know.
They don't ever check.
But I mean, still, you know, I was sitting there thinking, dude, you know, this dude could get fired if they knew. You know, I don't know if that's a firing offense, but I would assume they would be. Well, for one thing, they would think it was weird. Be like, why did you bring a dude with you down here to training to stay with you? That's odd, you know. At the time, I didn't even think about it on that level. You know what I mean? Whenever you're, you know, when we were a straight male and you guys are just hanging out, I mean, we slept in the same bed. I can't even tell you how many nights. You know, I think I've spent. You know, I've probably spent more nights sleeping in the bed with my wife now than I did with Dustin. But I mean, it was for years that I slept in the bed with him more times than I did anybody, you know, which is kind of weird to say, but
it is kind of weird.
But that's just our relationship, dude. We were for a lot of years just side by side, I guess you'd say.
Yep.
Doing dumb stuff, crazy stuff. Me more than him. He was usually just trying to keep me from getting killed or something like that, and something stupid, or getting mad at me for leaving him. But yeah, I was thinking about Trent. We need to get Trent on here. I think he's probably got a good perspective on a lot of this stuff.
Well, he was kind of offended on that Facebook post that he wasn't involved in this.
Oh, in the making of or whatever, the site, whatever. Well, I mean, I haven't talked to him about it.
He said he had the wits. He had the voice. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what else he said.
Hey, he'd be a good one to have on, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, we don't have another mic yet. So as soon as the other mic comes in.
It'll be here tomorrow, you know. That's what I think we could probably, I don't know what your schedule's like, though. There's no telling what you got going on. But on me, I'm just like,
well, this is my office.
Let's do another one.
I'm ready to do it. And here we are an hour and 41 minutes in, and did we even mention Dustin beforehand? I mean, we didn't anticipate this becoming like what would you call it?
In memory of or something like
Dustin.
that?
I mean, but really, like you said, and that's how you and I began to know each other. That's how we knew each other.
Well, and I didn't plan it either, but on the other hand, though, it's kind of like it would be to me. It would be strange, like, of course we don't mention Dustin in every conversation or even all that often, but
right.
In a deal like this where you can just imagine if he was around, he'd been right in the middle of it. Right. He probably wouldn't want to be on it. You know what I mean? He might get in here a little bit, but he didn't enjoy this kind of, setting. He might be sitting in a chair right over there on his damn phone.
Oh, he'd definitely be in the room.
Yeah. I mean, he would
definitely be in the room.
But then he would be telling us what we did wrong. You know what I mean? As soon as the camera stops or whatever.
He'd be back there going.
Yeah. He'd be shaking his head, when it's over. He'd be like,
that's what he'd be doing. He'd be like,
you realize how stupid you sound when you say that? Don't talk about that. Or I'd be divulging too much information or something, and he'd be getting on to me for that.
But this is what, we didn't plan this to be about Dustin. But
and I don't even want to pretend, I don't want to say that, it's because of him or anything like that. But I mean, to kind of start this thing out, he was gonna come up, you know what I mean? And he will in the future, you know what I mean?
Yes.
For me, I have too many, I would guess you'd say what I would say or entertaining stories that have to do with him for him not to, make his way into some
like
of
you
this
said,
stuff.
he had that big of an influence on us, you know, and just about anybody we're going to have on here is going to have some kind of, most of them anyways.
Yeah.
Will have something to say about Dustin.
Yeah.
For sure. Well,
and that's not even
something funny, you know, or some good story, or, the dude had a heart of gold, and so it wasn't all doing crazy stuff.
No.
He was all about,
Oh, there was plenty of times he'd help, when I'd be going crazy about wanting to be there for my boys and a lot of the stuff that was going on whenever I was divorced and stuff, and we were hanging out, that he would spend time like just sitting there listening to me gripe or, whine or complain or whatever. And, he'd offer up his opinion on stuff, and there's plenty of times he helped me with a bunch of stuff. He invited Gavin to play baseball because he wanted us involved in what he was doing and where he was going, and so that in that instance, like you said, I mean, this dude would do anything he could, that's like, I was like, dude, it's too expensive to play baseball, and travel around and all that. And he's like, man, I get these rewards for staying in hotels when he was off working all the time. He's like, I get these awards. I'll get the rooms, when we go to Tulsa, and he would buy my room.
Yeah.
I mean, I go stay for free. He's like, look, I'm eliminating the cost. Just come up here and play. And I'm like, what? I mean, and that's, to me, that's unusual. You know what I mean? I mean, most people would be like, hey, if your kid's good, they'd be like, hey, do you want to play on this team? We'd like to have your son. And if he's, but it was, even if Gavin would have been horrible, he would have done it just because, he likes me, he liked Gavin,
right?
Because of me or whatever. And I mean, those are the sides of him that I think a lot of people are familiar with, Yeah,
I mean, definitely.
There was a lot of sides to that dude.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you could spend days and days and days talking about the different things that I've seen him do and the way he reacted to certain situations and how he felt about, you know, and most of it he didn't want me knowing about, you know. Dude, I mean, like the day that his dad got out of prison, you know, and that kind of thing. I mean, we were, you know, I met his dad for the first time. This dude was fresh out of prison. Like that day,
was
released.
He eyeballing you? He was like looking up, you looking up and down.
No, it was like, I'll tell you what struck, and I had, of course, never met him before, but what struck me is how much Dustin looked like him. You know, I was just like, wow. But how much they were not alike. You know what I mean? I mean, he really, Dustin's dad was real, not necessarily bad, and not bad or anything like that, but he was almost like car salesman-ish. You know what I mean? I could tell that Dustin's, the part of his personality that was, that could get to know you really easily came from his dad. Dustin was a little more of a sincere person, I think, than his dad. I don't want to say anything negative about his dad at all. I don't mean to say this in a slight. I'm just saying from the time that I spent around his dad, which wasn't a ton, but a little bit, I definitely saw where some of Dustin's people skills came from, as far as genetically or, you know, in his personality, but their general way of being, no. I didn't find him to be a whole lot alike, but it was funny to watch Dustin interact with his dad, because it was like this kind of love-hate thing he had going on, you know. It was kind of a strange thing, but that was a side of Dustin that I saw, because I immediately liked his dad. You know, like I had a Tahoe at the time, and I let his dad take my Tahoe, fresh out of prison. Because I didn't drive it, you know what I mean? I was working for Chesapeake, I had a company truck. They were like, just drive it like it's yours. So I didn't ever drive it. I was like, dude, you need to get around, man. You know, you're Dustin's dad. Take my ride. And Dustin was like, and I didn't even tell Dustin. His dad told him, and Dustin called me. He was like, "What in the hell do you think you're doing?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You give your Tahoe to my dad?" I was like, "Well, I didn't give it to him. I told him he could drive it. You don't have no way to get around." He's like, "Do you realize who you gave your vehicle to?" He was so nervous. And the weird thing was I lost his dad for about 2 days with my Tahoe. That is no lie.
You lost his dad.
Yeah, we couldn't get a hold of him. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I can only imagine what he was doing.
Well, I took
where he was at.
Well, like that the day that he got out of prison, I took him to meet. Well, he goes, "Hey, Dustin was somewhere. He couldn't go with us." Anyway,
I meant by that, I'm sure he was at like his girlfriend's house.
Well, he said, "Will you take me by this place in Savannah?" You know, because his dad lived in Savannah, and whenever he got in trouble or whatever. Okay, it's a little trailer park over. I can take you right to it right now. And I pull up. He gets out of my ride, walks up to the door, knocks on the door. He was a big dude too. Knocks on the door. This lady answers the door, and almost knocks him down, hugging him. They go in the door, and the door shut. I thought he was coming with. I think he was just going to go by and see this lady and tell her he was out of prison. They shut the door, and he doesn't come back out for a long time. He said, "I'll be right back," is what he told me.
Right.
I have no idea what went on inside there after he went in. I don't know. He'd been in jail a long time, or in prison a long time. I can't even begin to, guess or whatever. When I told Dustin that, dude, he was so pissed off. He's like, "You should have drove off and left him there." But that was, that's Dustin's range of emotions that were going on, with that whole deal. But
yeah.
It was.
No, yeah, because Dustin gave you the shirt off his back. And I used to tell him that. And I said, "Dude, I know you would give anybody the shirt off your back, but if you ever have to give your shirt to me, I'm going to use it as a blanket." He's like, is that a fat joke? I'm like, "No, dude, you're just, taller than me." Because the big joke was, for him, his favorite place to shop was for clothes, Dillard's, big and tall. And anytime I go to Dillard's and I see the big and tall signs, every time I laugh.
Yeah. Because
I'm like, I know. Dillard's big and tall. Nowhere else carries clothes that'll fit.
No, I bought a pair of Nautica jeans off of him one time. I didn't even know him all that well. They were still in high school. You guys were all still in high school. I bought a pair of jeans off of him, and he's like, I can't fit them. They're too small. I was like, really? I paid like $20 for them or something like that. I wore those jeans. Dude, I had them for like 3 years and wore them all the time.
When we went to Denton, we went to Six Flags, and we waited in line for like 3 hours in the 100-degree weather, 100-degree sun beating down on us. This is the funniest story. To me, I couldn't stop laughing. The whole ride, I couldn't stop laughing. When I got off, I was still laughing, and right now I want to laugh. Like anytime I tell the story, I start laughing. But we go to the very front of I think it's the Batman ride. And at the time it was brand new. And I sit down, and Dustin goes to park, and he couldn't fit, right? He couldn't fit. And he waited in line with us this whole time. You know, it was hot. Oh my gosh, it was hot.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time to ride this ride. And he goes, I can't fit. And I'd never really noticed anybody not being able to fit on a ride, you know? And I just remember sitting down, I guess the thing's fixing to close, and he's like, I can't fit. I'm like, dude, try it. And because he didn't really even try. He just barely put his butt on it, you know, just to see. And he just like, nope. I mean, he barely. And I was like, no, dude, try. And he goes, I can't fit, man.
Well, and that, you know.
So the lady said, no, there's bigger ones in the back. And he goes,
nope, I could have told you. Well, and that's the thing about it, dude, is if he felt embarrassed about something, or if something made him feel uncomfortable, he's gone.
Yeah. I don't know if it was more of that, and maybe it was. I thought maybe he just wanted to be right there with us, enjoy it with us. You know, it's like, well, why am I going to get on the back? You know, all my friends are up front. And I was like, dude, just try. You know, and he goes, I can't fit.
When he's done,
and
he's
she
done.
Said, there's bigger ones right there, you know, just a few rows back or whatever. And he was like,
yeah.
And he jetted. And, you know, it wasn't funny to me because, you know, it was just, I mean, he thought it was funny.
Yeah.
You know, he laughed with me. I mean, we were just that close that, you know, it wasn't like I was making fun of him because he was, you know, too big. But it was very hilarious to me the way he didn't even try to sit in that seat. I was like, dude, just try to fit it. And he was like, no.
I could have told you, dude.
And I wasn't even able to enjoy the ride because I was laughing so hard the entire time. Yeah. You know, and I got off and I was still laughing, and he was laughing. I was like, dude, you didn't even try. And he's like, I know what I can fit. You know, I'm like, okay.
Well, that's like whenever when he wrecked David Ketcher's motorcycle and messed himself, you know, all that stuff like that. He's told me the story about it before. I wish I could remember it better. Do you remember anything about that?
He took a ride on it, and
that's what I mean. But the wreck, I mean, it almost cut his nose off. Yes. Right. Yes. I mean, I remember the big scar he had and stuff, and I remember him walking around in flip flops because he had he wrecked in flip flops. And had knocked all the skin off the top of his feet. And he was telling me a story about walking back after he wrecked it.
Didn't he push the motorcycle back, or is that a different? I'm thinking of a different.
I can't remember. And see, him and David Ketcher, like David wanted to pay for the bike, and he wouldn't pay for it or whatever, and all this stuff like that. But I don't remember that part of it. And he's told me the story about the wreck, but he doesn't remember a whole lot of it, or didn't remember, I don't think, a lot of it or something. But he was telling me about his nose like flopping or something like that. I don't know. I wish he was still around to tell the story. I hope that maybe we'll run into one of the people we have on here that can kind of remember the story a little bit better about it.
He told me the story too a bunch of times, but
yeah, I wish I could remember.
I couldn't tell you.
It was funny the way he would tell it, you know. I mean, because he would tell it kind of lighthearted, even though he got hurt real bad. Right. You know, he would tell it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what we do. You know, yeah. We would just make light of any
this dude,
every
man.
Situation.
I saw him get over things, you know, just like, I don't know. He could be a very strong person mentally if he needed to be, you know. I mean, I remember when his mom died, we were sitting at Pizza Hut in Wilburton, sitting there eating lunch, and we were talking, you know, just whatever, like we were doing now, just back and forth.
And she was supposed to be getting out. right?
Right. She'd been in the hospital, and I didn't
You
even
guys
know
were-
she was in there.
Oh, you didn't know?
I
she was
didn't
in the
know.
hospital?
No, I did not know. And he was gonna go. No. He was gonna go see her when we got done eating because
he was gonna go check her out or get her out, right?
no,
I thought she was getting out that
his
day.
sister was there, getting her.
Okay,
Stephanie
go ahead.
was there.
I'm sorry. I thought she was getting out
Well,
or trying to get transferred or something.
well, no, Stephanie was supposed to pick her up, I think. Anyways, I'm not real clear on it right now, but yeah, and he answered the phone. He's like, "What? You know, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, you know, it didn't seem like something horrible had happened. You know, he was just like, okay. And he had the flip phone, shuts the flip phone, sets it down, and he's just sitting there. And I was like, and he goes to get up, and I was like, where are you going? He said, my mom just died. And he turned around and walked out of Pizza Hut. And I was like, it took me a second. I was like, what? You know, I knew she'd been sick or whatever, but, and I was like, oh God. So I thought, well, I got to pay for the bill, you know? So I went over and paid, and he walked across the street, you know, cause we were across the street from the hospital, walked across the street. Well, I go get in the vehicle and drive over there, and he's in the hallway trying to get it sorted out. And, you know, everybody's having a meltdown, you know, his sister was having trouble, and dude, he was so calm. I mean, I'm not trying to pretend it didn't mean anything to him, but I mean,
He's in shock.
Yeah, and he had control of
But
himself.
at the same time, he could control it, yes.
And he never really got like, he just didn't talk about it a whole lot, you know, even whenever, because I went to her funeral with him, you know, I remember sitting there with him, and, you know, people trying to console him, and he was, you know, I mean, he wouldn't let anybody know. He's trying to take care of everybody else, you know. He's
right.
Like, nah, you know, he's
that was him.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he was always comforting Mark, and you know, it was just that dude. He was strong, you know. And when his dad died, you know, I mean, I went through all that stuff with him, and I don't know, man. I mean, he handled a lot of that stuff a lot better than I would have. But
well, we're running out of time.
We're probably out of time, aren't we?
It's still recording, I think, so we need to say our goodbyes from our very first podcast. I don't know. The other one
that was kind of a test run, though, man.
Run.
This is more of an official. This feels like the first one to me.
I agree. I agree, especially with it being about Dustin, of course.
Yeah, it makes sense to start off.
The whole thing was about Dustin, mostly.
Accidentally.
I mean, and there's a million stories I could go into.
Yeah.
There's a million stories with him I could go into.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here trying to restrain not telling story after story.
Me too.
But
we'll follow Lucas Johnson on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
he's got his own YouTube.
Lucas Johnson 2016 on my Instagram, and then I've got a YouTube channel that's just Lucas Johnson.
You need to put a URL or something on the end of it, or a like your name on the back, so you could say www.youtube.com/Lucas Johnson.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know how to do that.
It's very simple. Okay.
I'm old, man. What do you want me to do? You know, I mean, it's almost my 42nd birthday.
Oh God. For real?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's like somebody wished me happy birthday today, and I was like, it's not till the 14th. And they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. And I was like, I've had 41 of them, man. It's not a big deal, you know. That's a bunch, but anyway, yeah, man. This was a good one to me. I think this is a good start. It start better than I would have imagined it could have.
Maybe not. Maybe, you know, most people that didn't know Dustin, maybe not, you know.
And maybe not know how we knew Dustin, or how you and I, you know, I mean, even though people know us separately from before we were friends, you know, but I'm sure they're probably, without knowing how we got to be friends, probably was like, how these guys, but of course we're enough alike in humor and that kind of thing like that it probably makes sense to a lot of people. It makes sense to me, you know. I was always like, I remember after I was around you for just a little bit, I was like, why have I not been hanging around with this guy for forever?
Same here.
You know?
Same here. And then I always went back to that phone call, and I was like, yeah, that's probably why right there. I mean, right after that, we started hanging out. But
yeah, that's a sucky thing to be remembered for.
Well, when they sing, no, when they sang, when you had Trent, I guess, call and have me sing the song.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Boogie Nights.
I want to save that one for when Trent's here.
Okay.
That way he can kind of back me up with that stuff. That's a good one.
He's got a memory like an elephant. I
Yeah.
remember everything like when I was a kid,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell you what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I'm really bad that way myself. Yeah, definitely. You want to check out the next one, episode 2. Maybe we can have Trent. He might be a good segue to have for the next one.
I think maybe he should come on in a couple of years. I'm gonna make him wait.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
No, I can have him come next time.
I think it'd be a good one. You know, it's kind of just like stacking on top of. I mean, it's going to be a good way to introduce. I say introduce. You know, kind of our, friendship or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, Trent's a nice addition to that guy we have.
He's in the circle.
Yeah, in
Circle
common
of
or
trust.
whatever you want to say. Yeah, the circle's a lot smaller these days than it used to be, I guess. But
Golly, yes.
anyways, yeah, this was a good one, I think.
I think so too. I mean,
I'm going to tune in for the next one. I don't know. I mean, this was enticing enough. I'll watch the next one.
I'll probably watch it as well.
If nothing else for the music, you know what I mean? I mean, that's...
For real. You're going to sing a song every time.
I'm going to try to, yeah. I mean, long as...
Every time. I want to know, do you do any 90s country?
I can. Yeah, I got some stuff I do. Yeah.
I mean, do you do like...
I got some How Ketchum I could bust out right now.
How Ketchum?
Right now.
For real?
Yeah, I know it by heart, dude. I could sing it in 5 seconds.
You know
yeah.
I love How Ketchum.
Maybe I'll do it next.
What about Cowboy's Hat by Chris Ledoux? You ever sing that one?
I've sang it before.
Or Stampede?
I learned to play it. Stampede by... You like that song?
Who don't
By
like
Chris
Stampede?
Ledoux?
Not Chris Ledoux. Yes.
Yeah. He
Chris
does a song
Ledoux,
called
yeah.
Stampede, but I mean...
Why wouldn't I like that song?
I would never dream you'd even know that song exists.
You want me to sing every word of it right now?
No, I really don't.
'Cause
I don't
I'll-
think we got time.
We don't have time, but I'll do it. Every
Well,
word.
I believe you. I believe
Cowboy's
you.
Hat? This Cowboy's Hat?
Yeah,
An excellent song.
yeah, it's a pretty good one. Yeah, it's a really good song. Well, maybe that'll be a future thing. I don't know. We'll see.
I know you don't take requests, but I'm just put in a couple of requests.
It depends. I mean, if you request it and I like it already, I might be like, yeah, I'll do that
But
one.
you like Stampede and you like This Cowboy's Hat, right?
Yeah, I mean, but if you go, well, can you do this Nas song acoustic? And I'll be like, no.
Can you do some Martina McBride? All right.
Yeah, this is a good one.
I don't want to run out of time in mid sentence, so
Well, keep checking, people.
YouTube, Lucas Johnson, and we're gonna name this thing at some point.
Yeah,
We still
haven't
have not come up with a name.
we're not supposed to forget Blackline Insurance Group. I mean, that's
People know. They know me.
It's our
Everybody knows
sponsor.
me. Yeah. Brought to you by BlacklineInsuranceGroup.com.
Yeah. They buy our underwear. They buy our everything.
I'm gonna have to get like a sticker. Like
That would be awesome.
sticker
I want to get a
right here.
sticker that says I'm an idiot or something like that. I don't know.
oh,
I gotta find something to shamelessly promote. I don't know what it's gonna
your
be.
YouTube
yet.
channel,
Yeah.
or is that too?
I need to put some more stuff on it, dude. I've got one video that's less than a year old.
Well, how
on
about
it.
every time we film your video right here?
Ooh, I could stick it
Put
on.
it on there,
Yeah,
too.
that's a good idea. That's a dang good idea. We can do that. Yeah, we can kind of promote two things at once. Sweet.
Yeah. BlacklineInsuranceGroup.com. YouTube.
Lucas Johnson's shitty YouTube channel.
.com/. Lucas Johnson. Way I find your channel easier or easiest is just putting in Lucas Johnson and Luke Combs.
Really?
And because you've seen some of his songs, and so it will find your.
That's. I mean, I don't
it's the
hate Luke
easiest way.
Combs. I just
'Cause
hate.
well, there's some. I'm just saying when you put your videos and you tag them or you name them,
yeah.
cover Luke Combs or whatever. That's just the easiest way
together.
to get to your channel.
Yeah. Okay.
This thing has got to be out of time, and it's not telling me it's out of time, but it's got to be out of time.
All right. Well, everybody have a great day.
Deuces. Love your body.